So we're here to talk a little bit today about how INVISTA handles their digital turnarounds. It's kind of a hot button issue for a lot of people here in this room. Some of you guys probably do similar things to this. Mike and INVISTA has been working with us for what, 5 years now almost?
Right at 5 years, we've done 7 events with them, and it started out slow, but right now it's pretty much we're at the top of the chart on getting all of our documentation locked down. This last event, all of our traveler or relief device travelers, what we call them, documentation. You know how you have that paper tag that used to be on the RVs? Well, now we got it digitalized, and it stays with the equipment the whole way through. And you'll see it later on in this presentation. Equipment closures are all digital. We've actually had people that weren't on site got pictures through this Mobideo where they could see the equipment and okay the sign off to close it out, not even on site.
Yeah, so we're going to take you through today. We're going to show you some of the things that INVISTA is doing and how they kind of approach some of these problems from a digital perspective. So let's jump into it. So this is what, Mike, you guys are currently using.
Currently we're using the Connected Workforce, which is our Connected Manager for Management Group in Mobideo, and then we also got the Connected Worker, which is where they update the schedule. It's actually a digital call out from P6 into Mobideo, and it updates. When you'll see later on in here where it gives you real-time data on where you are right now, the whole way through. The biggest thing is getting the guys trained up beforehand, and I'm the guy who they come to. I go through the whole process on our test environment that we got. I get them all comfortable with it before we get into the event. Several of those guys have already been with us for 3 to 5 of the events that we've already done with them. So they're all already comfortable. They're just the new guys that come in that we got to get up to speed. Next one on here is the EH&S digital auditing. We actually embedded a hyperlink in Mobideo on our customer files that we got in there, where anybody that has Mobideo can go out there in the field and do their audits. And it's just right there digital. Next one is the job packages. Remember how you used to have job packages paper-wise? It's all right there in the iPad on the customer file, the same spot in Mobideo. They can pull it up, see all the pictures, see all the DPF files, see the PNIDs, flange makeup, the whole 9 yards. It's right there on it. Next down is the Enclosure Forms, like I was talking about. They're in there. The digital pressure relief device tracking, or the traveler as I know, digital permitting. We use ePass, and what we've done is we've taken an Excel pull from P6, dumped it straight into ePass, and every permit that we need is right there. It's already pre-populated. The guys come in and they say, I need permit 926, pull it up, there it is, fill it out, and they're there to work. It's way more efficient now that we got it going. The digital on-site and off-site tracker, we use another program where it's manually inputted right now, but it keeps an update on where we are, and we progress Mobideo on what percentage they are at the shop off-site, to where we know it's coming in and gives us an expected return date. Digital equipment and personnel tracking, I kind of touched base on that earlier today. We have the Triac Spot R trackers on the people and on the equipment, like your golf carts, forklifts. We don't do the cranes because they pretty much set right where you put them for the event. But how many times have y'all been in the event and you're looking for a forklift that's just vanished? It's happened to me many times. Now all you gotta do is pull up the computer. Oh, it's over here in ADN. Right over there, there it is, pick it up. We're back in business. Next.
So let's talk a little bit, Mike, about how INVISTA was operating before you guys made this decision to go digital. So what did a turnaround look like? What were some of the challenges you guys had? How are you handling these things?
Okay, the 3-shift look ahead, we would do a paper copy at 5 a.m., have it scheduler come in, print up copies, hand them out to the contractors. They have to fill them out as they go through the day and get to 3 p.m. and say, okay, guess where you're going to be at 5 o'clock. Fill it out, get it back into the scheduler so you can have that next 2 hours to manually update every task that y'all have done today. The documents for packaging or packages like the closure forms, it was paper copies. Travelers, paper copies. So by the time you get to the end of the turnaround, how many of y'all have been scrambling at the end trying to find those paper travelers that got misplaced or copies of documentation you need that got misplaced? Then you got to run around scramble and find the guys that did it, if they're still on site with you, and get them to fill out another one and backdate it to the date they did for our documentation. With the digitalized deal, it's there, it's stuck, it's in there, it's programmed, there's no loss no more.
So let's talk a little bit about how you guys are doing this today. So through a lot of these digitalization efforts, you're using our software, which is the Mobideo platform. So there's kind of 3 parts to this platform, and I'll try to visualize each part for you so you guys can understand what it is. The first part is the app. So the app is what the field worker is meant to go out in the field, collect their information, report their progress. It's meant for kind of like those individual contributors and those first line supervisors. The next is the connected manager here. The connected manager is where that kind of supervisor level manages the activities and tasks for their team, schedules them when there's problems, resolves them, tracks delays and issues from that screen. We call it the airport view. The reason we call it the airport view is if you ever go to the airport and you see the big screen, it says, flight coming in from Chicago, taking off at 8, landing at noon, landing at this gate on time. It's essentially the same version of that, just for work packages out in the field. And then the last one here is the optimizer. All that really is just a fancy word for BI, which is just a fancy word for charts and graphs. So we take that information collected from all of these places and all of these systems, and we show it to these guys in different ways that they use to make their decisions.
And
So, go ahead.
the way that I see this right here, number 1, that's all your data input. That is 100% data input right there. Number 2, that's us managers out there viewing what was input, where we're at, how we got where we're at, and they'll plug delay codes and everything that you'll see in the manager app that tell you, okay, this one's held up. Let's go find out why, get it fixed, and keep it going.
Okay, so this first one right here, this first example, so a lot of these screenshots are from the most recent turnaround that INVISTA did. So this one right here is a digital wall chart. So a lot of you guys work in turnarounds before, everybody's familiar with this. Turnarounds have been run off wall charts for decades. It's a proven system to keep everything organized. Back in the day, there used to be a big sheet on a wall somewhere in the inspections trailer that somebody would go in and actually put their initials next to a task that was complete. So we haven't done anything crazy here. All we've done is just kind of create a digital version of that based off of people actually completing tasks out in the field. So Mike, you want to tell me a little bit about how you guys use this particular?
How I use this 2 to 3 times a day while I'm in there. I come in and open it up, and I don't care about the green. That's all completed. That's behind us. I go in and I'll click on the yellow. You can click on either the 5 up here on top or down on the yellow on the bar line, and it gives you a list over there of everything that needs to be done today. That's your start time, which means it needs to be happened and completed on this shift.
Exactly right. All right, so another part of the system that these guys manage very closely is delays. So delays is when a crew goes out to a job and for whatever reason they can't start at that moment. Could be a permit's delayed by 30 minutes, could be the crane's broken and need to be completely reassigned. Each of those situations is different and it needs to be managed in a different way. A minor delay, you may say, hey, a permit was 20 minutes out of the door, I'm just gonna have to eat that inefficiency, it is what it is. But if it's a major delay and a crew actually needs to be reassigned to some different type of work, then there's different action that needs to be taken. So, Mike, how do you guys use this particular report?
This is another thing that I look at when I open up the BI report 2 to 3 times a shift. And I come in and look, if you look at this right here, the dark green over there, the biggest hit that we had is equipment unavailable. So it wasn't cleared up ready or not ready for the mechanic or the boiler go get started on it. That was the biggest hit. And like he was telling me, we talked earlier, there's 192 delays on here for a 3-week window that we was, or actually 4-week window that we had this event going on. That, to me, that was low. The sad part is, every one of these hit my screen, and I had to go check them out. You know, but it is what it is. That's part of the job.
All right, so here's an example of the relief valve travelers that Mike was talking about. So this form right here is actually filled out by somebody typing in information in the app, taking pictures of certain things, and this form is populated automatically.
And what I did for this documentation, so for my company to go through it, I manually whited out the equipment information and the employees. All this is filled out, but it's blank right now for this, just for the demonstration. But it goes through, and I had it locked down to where they had to answer every one of these questions on here before I would open the next task to let the next person get started on working there. If you could look, trying to see it, it's kind of fuzzy. On the signatures, I'm looking for the dates. It split it up different than what I was seeing. I can't see it here, but before, on a discovery, SCR, okay, I'm on this really well. So yeah, this right here is the travel. This is the removal, that's the shop, and then the bottom part is when they install it back on. And here's the equipment closure form I was talking about. Did the same thing. I whited out everything for this presentation. But that whole top part is pre-populated from SAP. And then the signatures, you put your signature in for your QC person, your QA person buys off on it. If it had anything to do with NACE, the NACE guy would have to sign off. That one wasn't. Operations, they okay it. And then the process engineer. This is where I had the process engineer. At home, we would send it in, and there would be pictures on them that they could look at and say, yes, I'm good with you closing that. It's cleaning up, it's in operating conditions.
So the benefit of this one here is that it allows multiple people at different times to see all the information they need to make that decision, to buy off the best and say, yeah, it's able to close.
And here is a list of the SCRs that we had come through.
So an SCR is just, it's a change request.
Scope change request, approved work request, it's an SCR, we know it by.
So what they're doing right now is workers actually out in the field are noticing something that has to change. They're initiating that change request from the field, sending it to the appropriate people to make a decision off of that request, and the approval is then handed in the app also, and it's put back in the schedule and the full circle is nailed.
Kind of to talk a little further, the last presentation we had, they were talking about your scope development. Well, right here it is. The original scope is the L0. We go one step further than what he was talking about. We have scopes of middle date, where everything has to be in by that date. Anything past it is considered an L1 at our site. L1 has to have my signature and the operations event commander signature to bring it in. And this is before scope freeze. Then you do scope challenge on all the scope, move stuff out, move it in, and you put an SCR in for anything removed where you document, hey, it wasn't truly turnaround scope, that's why it got removed. L2s is anything from scope freeze to full fund DMF, final DMF. L3 is from final DMF to the begin of execution, and L4 is your execution scope.
So how are you handling this process before you had the digital process? And how long was it taking you then compared to now?
It was paper copies back then, and the cumbersome part of it is once you made the paper copy, I had to go see you to get your signature. Once I got your signature, I'd go back to see you, Mr. Operations Manager, get your signature, vice versa all the way through. It was a cumbersome process to get stuff in and out. It would take days. So here's the actual SCR form that we're talking about. This was one that was done during the event. It's an L4. If you look at the bottom, you can't really read it. 3/24 at 13:41. The final signature was on 3/24 at 21:21, and that signature was made in Wichita, Kansas, for our plant in Victoria, Texas.
So would you say that doing this process digitally has saved you?
It's saved a phenomenal amount of time. I mean, we got approval the same day to get this work, start planning it, getting it ready for execution.
All right, so this right here, this is a pretty kind of standard report, and this is just pretty much a basic murmuring graph. So anybody who's looking at some project controls graphs during a turnaround, you'll see that this is a pretty common one to use to measure your schedule progress.
This one right here was our scaffold builders on the past event, and it's a quick picture of what good looked like in our event. And you can see the blue, the green was the original, the orange was the current original, the green was the current, and the blue is what we ran with. So we pretty much stayed on original the whole way through. Now the next slide is what you don't want to see. But it painted a picture to where we were 4 days into it, and we noticed our acid wash contractor was not cutting the mustard. So we got on the horn, got on the hook, found another contractor to come in, and they got there on day 11. So day 11, day 12, and day 13, they finished out all the scope that we needed done.
So that kind of shows one of the really powerful parts of this tool is you guys are able to notice back here that you're having problems, you're falling away really easy because you drill down to that specific contractor. And then you can make decisions to influence that and actually finish this work ahead of schedule.
Okay, and this is the Flange Mapping. I'll give you an example. This is after the event. I got called to have this presentation after it was already over with. During the event, it starts out gray, and as the QC does their part, everything turns red on the QC. That shows QC's done. Once QC's done, it gets handed over to QA, and once he finished signing off on it, it turns green. So it paints a picture when you get close to the end of the turnaround on how much flange makeup you need done and what you got to prioritize on. And as you can see here, there was probably 1,500, 1,400 flanges that we touched overall, and we actually came in on schedule on flange makeup. Earlier today we was talking about the shutdown and startup process. This is the one area we got that's well defined on a clear shutdown procedure and a startup. And this right here is part of the actual shutdown. Yeah, it's blue right here, that's the shutdown. And they stayed on track. We were supposed to have it done on the 28th. We didn't get it finished till the 29th. There was one thing that lagged, that we had to go an extra day. But it paints a pretty picture on how many activities they did each day, and the durations of them was really good. Because some of them, like on day 2 on the 24th, those were a bunch of 1 and 2 hour tasks that they had to knock out.
Yeah, let's talk about this one. So this is an important one to measure, and also really shows kind of the value of a digital system. Is one of the most important things to manage during your turnaround is critical path, and making sure that critical path work is not slipping. So if that critical path work slips, you're going to inevitably push the end date of your turnaround, and nobody wants that. So what happens during these events is there's a lot of change that's introduced throughout that. And as that change happens, the critical path can change. And we take that's calculated from P6, and we come here and we have very easily defined filters for somebody to actually see what the critical path is. And then you can slice and dice that data based off of equipment type or contractor, or really on any value inside of your schedule that you want. And anybody can see this, any contractor can see it, so they can actually see what their critical tasks are that they have to manage during a turnaround.
So yeah, this one right here, we got a sphere out there at our site that on the 2018 turnaround, they did a scan of the base where the bottom 24-inch flange was. It was out of specs, it was at T minimum. So for this event, we had to go in, cut the flange off, cut the repad off, take off about a 3-foot section all the way around it, and get a piece of plate, metal, rolled into a sphere, and put back in. And it painted a picture, and actually this one came in early, and another piece ran longer because it failed at the end of the event.
Point is, it's dynamic and kind of ever changing, and this helps you keep an eye on it.
Correct. It keeps the birds and bees right there at you. You're seeing everything.
So that's kind of really all the stuff we guys wanted to show you today. In whole, the synopsis was to kind of show you guys what the value of doing a digital turnaround was, how INVISTA is using it throughout the last, 7 events you said you guys have used it for?
7 events.
And kind of the successes they've had about it. So if anybody has any questions, we would be happy to answer them. All right, lots of
Who do you guys hold responsible for providing the hardware? Do you expect contractors to spend all their iPads and stuff like that, or do you guys supply that?
We do supply, we have 47 iPads and 5 or 6 smartphones, but most of the contractors that come out there, they put the app on their own personal cell phone.
So there's a couple of different strategies. One, an owner-operator will buy all the hardware themselves because they want to own and control it from an IT perspective. Or what they'll do is they'll require their contractors to come in and bring their own devices. Or they'll do what Mike said, and they'll just use their own phones. It's pretty flexible as far as what kind of what the owner-operator wants to do.
And to talk about that on the IP part of it, as soon as the turnaround's over, you go in and you deactivate that person. I deactivated probably 450 people out of Mobideo back in April, May. They can't open nothing no more once they get deactivated. Yes.
I got 2 questions.
Okay.
How long did it take you to transfer your paper job packages into the electronic job packages?
How long does it take?
Yes.
When the planner's doing it, instead of printing out a paper copy, he just puts the digital thing with
What I'm saying, if you already got job packages put together from historical turnarounds, we basically just pull those back out and go back through them again. So if I'm gonna convert all this to electronic, how long does it take to do that?
Well, it would depend on how much equipment, how big of a asset are you talking about? I mean, but I would say to do a package, it'd probably take you 10 minutes max per package.
PDFs and
PDF it and then put it in there.
And then are people being notified through email?
Yes.
Some kind of notification that, the form is now waiting on you to sign?
During the scheduling, you'll get a notification when your task becomes available to start work on it. It'll flag you on your either the iPad or on your smartphone.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's another feature we didn't really dive deep into. This is how we're moving people around the event. So if your task is not available to work, it's not going to show up on that app for you to go and progress that day. As soon as it is available for work, what's going to happen is you're going to get a notification on your phone, whether it's a push notification or whether it's an email, or we can even do text messages that is sent to you and says, hey, job 1, 2, 3, 4 is assigned to you, it's ready to work, go work that job. So we're able to move people around the site pretty dynamically based off that digital schedule.
I'm gonna have to wait till that, because I got about 15 questions.
This gentleman here next to him.
So I guess my question is, what we saw, was that customized for INVISTA? Obviously, those are probably those forms, right? But how flexible is your system, or was that out of the box, the software?
So
And have
we-
to work with other clients who have other type of set tools, let's say material tracking. I didn't really see anything on material, you talked about it, but like, let's say they use a Jovix type system, or you mentioned Primavera, I'm good there. But like, let's say the packages, do you supply that document control database within your system, or is there a link to our, let's say, our in-house system? How does
Yes.
that work?
So there's a couple of things. I'll try to unpack it all. So if I forget one, just jump in, let me know.
Okay.
So we have some set products. This one is called Mobideo STO, which is it's a form product that's based around kind of our, what we call emerging digital turnaround practices. And those digital practices are just like a combination of what we've seen all across the industry with the best way to do these things. So inside of that, there are specific kind of canned reports that come out of the box, like for example, an earn rate or an S-curve. We think that that's something that pretty much everybody uses. A wall chart, for example, it's another example of what we show, something everybody uses. So we have kind of those canned reports stuff that we know a customer's probably going to ask for. Now on top of that, some other things we've created for INVISTA, totally customized things are like, hey, I want to see a report that shows me X, Y, and Z, week of work or so, and we're rolling out a report to these guys that they can actually go and use. To answer your question about where some of this data is coming from, the benefit of a platform like ours is we can connect to any source of data you have. So whether it's SAP, P6, whether it's a CMMS, whether it's a document control system, whether it's your planning system, materials management, however you're managing costs, for example, all of those places we can pull the data from to you. And the benefit is really that we can kind of stack some of these data sets on top of each other, show where they're overlapping and show you where the gaps and the holes are. Hope that answered your question.
It did.
In your histograms, can we assume that it can do histograms for all of the disciplines like piping, welding,
Yes.
weld feed, I&E, loop checks, those kind of things?
There was actually a filter on that, on the left-hand side, where you can pick the role you want, you can pick the company you wanted, if you wanted all the different roles that company has. And I cut it off. Over here, there's actually a spot where you pick which craft you want to check out, see if they're catching up or failing, whatever. I mean, you can break it down that.
So everything you can run a P6 report on, you can get histogram.
Exactly. Yeah, so if you think about where we're getting this data from, it's not anything groundbreaking. We're taking it from the schedule. So if the data exists in the schedule, or the data exists in another place you're keeping data that we're connected to, we can filter and slice the data based off of that.
So if I'm understanding, it's obviously a cost associated with an organization or company purchasing the system from you guys.
Yeah.
If I heard you correctly, once the company purchases the system, then I, as the company representative, can literally go out and say, I want these 300 guys all to have the ability to look at this, not only view the information and the BI reports, but also update their progress, which will there, without a license, update P6.
Correct.
Yes.
Our particular viewpoint on it is we do not charge by the user. To us, that's counterintuitive. Our perspective is that every person who works in a turnaround works by a schedule, so everyone should have access to it.
But there's also an accountability side of it too that we do. We track all those ones that got started and then 2 seconds later got finished. And we hit the contractor up and say, hey, I know this didn't take you 2 seconds. What's the deal here? If it's 1 or 2, it's a 1 or 2 off, yeah, he missed it. But when it's probably 3 or 4 events back, it was a bunch of them that was doing that, they no longer work for us. And they know it now. And the other ones that are there, know, hey, they're tracking this. If we ain't keeping up with it, we won't be here much longer.
So how did you change the mindset of taking cell phones out into the hill?
That's what I was thinking.
We don't allow that.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is they're gonna be intrinsically safe. And we have to have each contractor sign off that they're not gonna take pictures in the field and take them with them. They gotta sign off and agree to that. And there's stuff that's in their contract between companies and INVISTA that I'm not privy to seeing, but I know it's there because we talked about it, where the companies have already agreed, yeah, if my guys do this, I'm liable for this.
So your iPads are intrinsically safe?
Yes.
Okay.
So as a contractor, we've seen an extreme loosening over, what, the last 2 years probably?
Yeah.
In regards to having devices out in the field.
And there,
You see,
so
we're
the
going
iPads
off.
physically are not intrinsically safe, but there are.
They put them inside the R box.
Like the
There's a
hot
hot box
that's right,
defender
the
too.
cases- The cases that you can put around are, they're super expensive, but you can get it intrinsically safe. And there are, what we've also done as a company is you can actually disable the camera. And we tell our clients, go check any foreman out there, test their camera, and it's not gonna work. Internet, we cut that off as well, so they can't go out there and, play around, right? It's strictly for work, only the apps installed in there is exactly what they need to perform in that.
The downfall to that is you have to have internet.
Yeah, well, you can have service, they'll have service, but they can't get on Google. or-
Right, I got you.
Like Safari.
Restricted.
That's right, yes, sir. Yep.
Folks, this is tremendous, and I hate to cut off the questions, but we just have time for one more, any more out there? Didn't want to kill the enthusiasm. It's interesting, again.
I'll be here till Thursday, guys.
When we were talking about this, these new technologies are expanding a lot of things. I think the other thing is all the support technology, the pads, special boxes you have to provide, and say they're becoming more common, their costs are coming down, and then really it's opening up the field. And I think, in my experience was, we actually bought pine pads in sort of a backwards way. We weren't allowed to, and I just sort of asked for forgiveness later. But what happened was when COVID came on, my technicians in the field could actually talk with the engineers and boom, and it just changed things. So we've gone through this, we've made a step change. Now the question is how do we continue? How do we take advantage of it and allow it to continue on in our industry and find the next opportunities for these companies? So gentlemen, thank you very much, Mike and Daniel. It's been a tremendous presentation and really interesting. I think there's probably about 5 or 6 other